Welcome, LinkedIn Live community. Welcome, healthcare TA leaders and guests from outside of healthcare TA. We appreciate you, and thanks for taking time to join us live today. So, out-of-market hiring has been skyrocketing in healthcare with the shortage of labor and local talent pools. So, what are you doing to compete and hire the best talent from around the world? So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ryan Affolter with RogueHire, and I'm fired up to kick off this session. Today, we're diving into the great healthcare talent grab, lessons learned from the front lines of relocation and recruitment marketing, what not to do, and what actually works. So today is all about education first, giving you the playbooks, the proof points, the practical moves you can take back to your teams and improve out-of-market recruitment and relocation end to end. I'm joined by two phenomenal co-hosts, Jeff Ellman, and Anthony Gentile, CRO and managing partner of Rave Health, relentless about winning the talent movement through smarter strategy and recruitment marketing. And we're putting some high impact leaders in the hot seat to showcase best practices, mistakes, and real lessons learned. So we'll hear from Rebecca Capsalis, AVA at University of Vermont Health Network, as well as Susan Burke, most recently VP of TA at Peace Health in Providence. So today we're unpacking clear problem statements, no sugarcoating, concrete source solutions, what actually works in healthcare TA, high signal benchmark stories, and everything that translates into action. So our goal is simple: help you convert more accepted offers, reduce time to start, protect your budget, and deliver a relocation experience that families rave about. So thanks for joining. Let's dive in and let's get better together. Let's move on to the introduction slide, if we can, please. So, okay, we'll just go from here. We can turn it back just to get the photos up on the screen, but I'll start and just kind of turn it over to Anthony. There we go. Perfect. Wanted to give Anthony and Jeff their due diligence of these awesome photos here. So Anthony, take us away and give us a quick background on yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, Ryan. I know we have a lot to cover, and a lot of people on this call, I'm sure, know my story already. I've spent my entire career, over 22 years, exclusively in the healthcare talent acquisition space. I'd say over that time, I've met a lot of great people, consulted to countless healthcare organizations, and it's possible I've seen it all. I think I've seen what seemed like great strategies fail, and also what I thought would have been doomed for failure actually succeed. So excited today to learn from Jeff and Ryan and from our panelists and offer any insights that I can. So great to be here and looking forward to it. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. My name is Jeff Ellman. I'm one of the co-founders of UrbanBound. We're the leading healthcare solution for out-of-market hiring, helping about 10,000 relocations per year, and I'm really excited to be here today.
All right, and myself, I'm Ryan Affolter, a coach, instructor, subject matter expert in all things talent attraction for RogueHire. So let's welcome our guests today, starting with Rebecca Capsalis. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, Rebecca. You are on mute, Becky.
Of course I am. Hi, everyone. I actually go by Becky, so Becky Capsalis. I lead talent acquisition for UVM Health. We provide healthcare to individuals in Northern New York and Northern Vermont. We're an organization of about 16,000 people. I've been an HR professional for over 30 years. For the last 25 years, really practicing HR in Vermont. And over the last 15 years, really specifically leading talent acquisition. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you. And I will pass the mic to Susan.
Thanks, Becky. I appreciate that. And it's nice to meet all of you joining this call today. My name is Susan Burke, and I most recently was the Vice President of Talent Acquisition for Peace Health. And prior to that, spent 6 years at Providence in talent acquisition. If you are familiar with Providence and Peace Health, we are mostly West Coast based. Peace Health is Alaska, Washington, and Oregon, and a lot of small locations. So, of course, the relocation topic is always top of mind. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more and then maybe share some insights from some of our experience as well. So Ryan, back to you.
Awesome. So when Jeff, Anthony, and I got together about doing this session, we just wanted to anchor in on kind of why are we here. So I'm not going to read this verbatim. You guys can all read along, but the idea is, how do us in healthcare TA turn relocation from a cost center into a true competitive edge? Jeff's got a really good quote here on the out-of-market hiring isn't optional anymore in healthcare. So we have a really powerful session today. And then just to give you on the next slide a little bit of an idea on the agenda, we have some key learnings we want to cover. First, we're going to identify some critical mistakes. Anthony and Jeff are going to kind of take you through a story of what are some of those mishaps or things that TA often overlooks. We'll also kind of go into some best of the best case studies or stories and insights from Becky and Susan, and the experience that myself, Anthony, and Jeff see from elite healthcare systems out there in building a modern relocation ecosystem, and also talking about those proven methods to really build relocation into your DNA. And that's how you turn into a competitive edge from that cost center. So let's start it off with the team. Let's take us right into mistake number one.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I mean, there are so many mistakes when it comes to out-of-market hiring and relocation. So today we narrowed it down to some of the most common ones to drive through. So first off, the mistake is relying solely on lump sums or reimbursements. And the story here is you have a system in the Southeast offering all new nurses $10,000 lump sums for relocation. A nurse new to the area used to pay for a moving company and short-term housing, but underestimated the cost of home finding trips, school enrollment fees, and spousal support. The moving company damaged her goods, plus the shipment was $2,200 more than the original quote. 6 months in, she was frustrated, financially stretched, and she admitted she felt like the healthcare system was checked the box rather than actually supporting her relocation. She left after 14 months. So when we talk about relocation, the lump sum world or the reimbursement world, that philosophy of treating relocation as compensation versus a benefit has now shifted, where more and more healthcare systems are thinking about relocation as a benefit with added services and that white glove support that might go along with relocation. Lump sums and reimbursements put a lot of burden, if you go back real fast, on the relocating employee. You're asking them to front money and then wait till they're actually on payroll to get reimbursed or to receive that lump sum. And you're also putting them in the shoes of being a consumer move versus a corporate move. And there's a big difference between the two. A consumer move is someone who's just randomly going out on the internet and being connected with different vendors to support their move. And there are not service level agreements behind the support of the relocation vendor they're using. They're probably not getting the best pricing and quality. Versus when you work so hard to recruit talent, you want that move to be considered a corporate move, where you know that the employees are coming into your new hires' home, they're background checked, they're drug tested, they're touching the belongings, moving the belongings, which are really personal, of your relocating employee. Also, with lump sums and reimbursements, you miss out on that group buying power. So there's lots of opportunities that we're talking about today where how you can lower cost while improving the experience. What we're seeing right now with the big, beautiful bill and organizations trying to do more with less, moving away from lump sums and reimbursements to what are called managed budgets are growing in popularity, where in this case, you've got this relocating employee. She has up to a certain dollar amount, in this $10,000, and she can pick and choose what benefits or services that she wants to use as long as she stays underneath that budget. Why this is growing in popularity is that the employee has complete control and they get introduced to the best vetted suppliers, and whatever is not spent against that managed budget goes right back to the healthcare system as one of the ways to contain costs. So now you're improving quality by introducing them to vetted suppliers, and you're also saving money. We find that 94% of moves come in underneath that managed budget. So on average, it's about $2,000 or $3,000 saved per move. major opportunity cost right there. Next is that we're finding there is no technology or process to support on-site visits. We often find that on-site visits, they're a gamble. So we have the story here is we have a large regional health system. They hired a chief nursing officer without a centralized process. Every on-site visit was handled differently. Some by recruiters, some by HR, some left to the candidates themselves to figure everything out. There was no consistent approach to help candidates gain education about the community they could be moving to. And this would ensure they took the job. The only solution was a few local realtors that were introduced as part of that journey. So something we see at UrbanBound repeatedly is that healthcare systems, they do an amazing job selling the hospital, selling everything that happens inside those four walls. However, everything outside those four walls and everything around the community is really left to chance with that realtor. So giving a list of realtors, this doesn't solve the problem. We recommend having a proven process in place, leveraging software that automates for the employee or the candidate where they can book their hotel, book their airfare. All expenses are centralized through one place. Their itinerary is in one place. They can learn more about the community and neighborhoods. Before they even step foot on campus for the interview, they can log into your platform and they can become really well educated about what it'd be like to actually live there. We're also finding that with technology, more CHROs or heads of physician recruitment or heads of TA, they're baking in wow moments into the technology where if someone's coming on site, on November 20th, on November 19th, there's a welcome video to that candidate that we're really excited to see you tomorrow morning at the hospital. And here's your itinerary and everything that they need to know is just simplified and right there. So everything's choreographed, nothing's left to chance, and you can definitely improve the first impression of your employer brand.
Something that comes to mind too, Jeff, I just want to piggyback on that because I think this is a great point you make here. Candidates are going to interact with many people and processes throughout the journey with you. It's going to start with your sourcer, then your recruiter, then a hiring manager. They're going to meet people at the on-site, not to mention reviewing your website, your career site. What's the point? Human beings are very keen on picking up on inconsistencies, even very subtle, almost imperceptible inconsistencies. So I think to assuage concerns, it's critical that everyone, your system, your people, your processes are evangelizing the same exact story. This creates just so much trust and confidence. And in this labor market, clinicians really don't apply for or accept jobs at organizations they don't trust. So just wanted to add my 2 cents on that.
Anthony, I should also add that with this mistake, we also find that when you have a candidate who's submitting reimbursements for their Uber ride or their meals at the airport, whatever it might be, too often because they're not a vendor and they're not on payroll as an employee because they're a candidate, they're not being reimbursed for 4, 6, 8 weeks post their on-site visit. And that's a horrible first impression in that you know about the trust that employer brand. They lose trust right away by messing with someone's money by taking months to reimburse. And the next mistake is around not having a relocation plan during the recruitment process. So waiting until post-offer to actually discuss relocation is one of the biggest mistakes that we see. So a recruiter in a major academic health system lost a top chief nursing officer candidate to a competitor across the state. Why? Well, that competitor said, we've got your move covered. We'll handle the housing, we'll handle the tours for you, the schools for your children, the moving companies, everything's all taken care of. Her current process was, we'll talk relocation after you actually sign the offer. And the candidate felt more supported during the interview process with the other team and followed the path of least resistance to relocate herself and her family. So what we find too often, especially in the world of out-of-market hiring, is that clear communication equals met expectations and unclear communication equals unmet expectations. So oftentimes recruiters are not having the conversation up front. And the conversation should be, we're excited to bring you on site, or we're excited to have you join the organization. We've got your relocation completely figured out for you. We've done all the planning for you. You'll be connected with our relocation platform, and this will be completely streamlined. This will give you a competitive advantage when it comes to hiring out-of-market talent, because if you're one of those organizations today that's not talking about relocation, and you're saying, we're going to give you money, we hope it goes well. The others who are saying, we've got a plan for you. We're not going to make you front money. We're going to book best-in-class service providers for you. You're going to have a relocation consultant who's going to be assisting you and your family. Those are the ones that are winning. Also, putting this into your career page or embedding it into your job postings on your benefits section is really important. I would recommend today, look at your career page and see if you're offering benefits for relocation. because too often we find that organizations are offering benefits, but they actually forget to put it on their job posting or on their website. And that's really important because a lot of candidates are expecting that and they're looking for that when they're first meeting with you or looking for a job. Next, we find the mistake of ignoring the impact that moving has on the entire family. If that family does not land well and plant their roots, that employee won't stay. So this example of the physician, but we also have a COO who moved across the country to join a children's hospital in Seattle. She loved the job, but her partner couldn't find meaningful work in the new city. Their teenage daughter had a rough time adjusting to a new school and didn't love the neighborhood that they live in. The COO felt guilty and torn. Despite a great employer fit, she started looking elsewhere after 1 year to move back closer to family and the stability of it. So the family, one of the things that we find too often is that offering a realtor is great, but it's more about offering settling in services. There are partners out there who do settling in. And they are people who know the community. They know the hockey leagues, the dance classes. They know everything that you would need to know. And they're not motivated on just helping someone buy a home in the community. They're motivated by ensuring they have a soft landing. We're seeing more healthcare systems today create ambassador programs to support families. So think of employees that you've worked hard to recruit. They've relocated in the past few months or past year at your organization, and they're passionate about your hospital and also where they're working and living in the community. Make them ambassadors. Make them a family concierge, where someone who's accepted an offer, who's looking to accept an offer, can be connected with that family. And that'll really help with the first 90 days of the post-move of making sure they settle in quickly. We also find that recruiters are too often being asked their opinion about, where should my kid go to dinner? Where should my children go to school? Or, what temple or church should I belong to? This is a really dangerous situation to put your recruiters in. And also recruiters are in different stages of life often than the person who's moving. One might have kids, one might not have kids. One might be of one religion versus the other, and they're not going to be able to give their opinion. But what you can do, what we see more often now with technology, is you can use crowdsourced data where it's all anonymized. But if I'm relocating my family, I can see, what daycares do my coworkers send their kids to? What schools are most popular? What neighborhoods are people living in? All this anonymized data helps candidates and employees settle in and make the right decisions. We're also finding videos being used. So we've got the local relocation directors of real estate companies creating videos for relocating families to giving them tips on settling in. There's lots of great things that you can do leveraging software to ensure the family has a fully supported move, whether it's a resume writing service being offered to them or career coaching to the spouse. Those are really important steps to support that family member.
Jeff, if I could just jump in here real second, because I think this is a very, very important point. And incorporating the needs of, let's say, the family, I think it starts before the candidate is engaged, and even as a way and a means by which to engage them. So, if you want to identify out-of-market candidates versus or specific geographies, it's imperative that you list those benefits prior to it and make that part of your recruitment messaging. There's an old saying in sales and marketing that you need to provide value before you extract value. And in this instance, the value you're trying to extract is an out-of-market candidate who wants to walk the journey with you, but you need to get them to agree to talk to you in the first place. So they have to be intrigued. I had a client many years ago, created a series of PDFs, and he would send these to prospective candidates as part of his outbound engagement strategy. And they had nothing to do with the organization or the job. It was centered around the benefits of living in those communities, the schools, the nightlife, access to social activities, clubs, climate, you name it. And it was just a great way for a candidate who wasn't even thinking about making a move to get some information to see how could this be a fit, not just for me, but for everyone in my family, because it's probably an uncomfortable conversation for someone to sit down at the dinner table and say, hey, I know we live in Lubbock, Texas, but I got this great offer in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. It's probably better if they're armed with some selling points on why it's great for everyone else, the spouse, the kids, or whatever. So I think this is a really good one, Jeff.
Thank you, Anthony. One of our clients, St. Jude, they've worked with us for about 10 years. I'm really impressed with what they did. They realized that Memphis was a market that was challenging to recruit talent to. So they actually made videos for family members. So a lot of their employees, they actually stood in front of their house in Memphis, and they talked about the top 5 reasons why they love living there. In each neighborhood, they had one employee create these videos, and they added to the platform so that every single candidate who's coming with a family watch these videos. And if you think about it, 2 of the top 5 most stressful life events, moving to a new area and starting a new job are happening. So the more and more you can support your employees and their families, the more and more you're going to win in this war for talent for out-of-market hiring. And the next story is all around the mistake of not measuring relocation spend. I'm always amazed when I talk to heads of HR, CHROs, VPs of TA that really don't understand how much money they're spending to attract and retain talent every year for out-of-market hiring. So a Michigan healthcare system made a major investment in out-of-market nurse recruitment, $12,000 per hire on average, including sign-on and relocation. A PDF of recommended van lines and realtors was emailed to all candidates. Candidates had sticker shock when they learned how expensive the move was and often went online to find their own solutions. Despite the large amount of spend, the healthcare system couldn't understand why they received mediocre feedback on the support received and didn't know how to fix the issue. So first off, in this world, most employees, when they see the cost of the van line, they do get sticker shock. And oftentimes in this world, there's also better solutions for a fraction of the cost. So we, of course, work with dozens and dozens of the best van lines in the country, but often employees are moving with less. So there are small shipment solutions that are 30 to 40% less money. If you think of like a Pods or Mini Moves or some of those organizations out there that can do the exact same move for a fraction of the cost and have shorter delivery spreads and really high quality moves. Also, when it comes to not measuring spend, not getting feedback from every single move. So it's really important if you do recommend vendors with a PDF document, then that move is complete. You're looking at the cost of that move. You're looking at hopefully the employee who used that vendor scoring that move or that vendor on a 5-point scale or 10-point scale. So over time, the cream rises to the top. And all the hard work you're doing to recruit talent, you want to make sure they're working with the best-in-class vendors. So getting feedback and closing that loop is absolutely critical. Also, the more and more you use controlled vendors, you'll get better group buying power. So if you're doing hundreds of moves a year as an organization, you'll be surprised how much money you can save when you recommend some of the best vendors in certain categories.
Hey, Jeff, just a quick question for you. Can we assume that with collecting and benchmarking all of this data, you can predict the average of relocation by region, by job type, by level, and really see the spend in real time and what's accruing per relocation?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that what we do at UrbanBound is we benchmark every year. We have our benchmark report, but the cost of moving has gone up significantly over the last few years, yet most healthcare systems have not given more money. It's remained flat for the last 4 or 5 years too. So there's a little bit of a disconnect that's been happening in the marketplace.
I would add to that too, Jeff, that I think this slide is a really good example of how important the candidate experience is, because obviously someone thinking A and then being stuck with a bill for A times 2 is a really poor candidate experience. And for all of us in healthcare and TA as employers, we're unfortunately on the wrong side of supply and demand right now, and it's not forecasted to get any better. So it's going to get worse. And anything, honestly, less than a frictionless candidate experience is not ideal. And I think this is a good example of that, Jeff.
And the final mistake I want to share with you today is skipping out on real estate and mortgage support for your relocating employees. So we can go to the next slide here. Now, I'm not going to read this. You guys can read the story at the top about the chief medical officer moving to Arizona. But many employers, they do have realtors, but the realtors are at the destination of the move. And what's more important is actually the origin of the move, because that's where the stress is for this CMO. They need to sell their home, and then that gets everything in motion for the relocation. So yes, it's great to introduce them to realtors when they're on-site interviewing and they might want to buy a place. The origin of the destination, the origin of the move is absolutely critical. Buying a home, many healthcare systems have put really creative programs in place because they want their employees to buy a home and plant their roots in that community. Renters are a higher risk of leaving. So what are the things that you can do to encourage someone to buy and plant their roots? One of the things that we're seeing more of right now is there's some fantastic perks out in the market. For example, Rocket Mortgage offers in the healthcare space 1% of the loan amount up to $10,000. So any of your healthcare workers right now, for example, going through UrbanBound and they have a $500,000 mortgage on their home, that's $5,000 in closing credits they get. If you want to convert a renter who's currently renting, but you want them to also get assistance in buying in their new community, there's a program from Rocket called Rent Rewards, where 10% of their rent amount can go towards the closing costs on their home up to $5,000. So we're seeing more and more creative solutions out there to help people like yourselves to incentivize your relocated employees to buy that home and plant their roots, which as we look down the road will have a major impact on retention.
Okay, I'm gonna take this one here. Throwing darts at a board, mistake number 7. This is all about using data as much as possible to make really informed decisions with your budget. Budgets are tight, they're getting tighter. There's a vast ocean of talent out there, but you really need to be selective on where you fish. We have 4 million registered nurses in this country. We have just over 1 million doctors. We have 500,000 advanced practice providers and millions of allied health professionals and nursing support staff. And you would go broke if you decided to, pursue the entirety of this audience. So start by being selective. I know the idea of casting a wide net seems like it's a good idea, but it can be a very costly idea. Be selective. We live in a big country. We have major metros. We have suburban regions. We have a whole lot of rural areas in this country. And which of these markets is most similar to yours if you need to go outside of the market? I'd argue that if your organization is in a major metro area, and I see this all the time with my clients, if it's in a major metro area, it's probably wise to prioritize, advertising in similar markets across the country. Is that a perfect science? No. There's clinicians that for whatever reason are attracted to moving from a metro to a rural area. But again, you would almost need an unlimited budget to try and find those needles in the haystack. So you have to make educated guesses on where you should target. One idea is targeting and accessing the U.S. Census data. We do this for our clients all the time. You want to research state-to-state migration flows. It's going to give you a good sense of where candidates are coming from when they move into your market. You'd be able to identify, edge cases and outliers that help you zone in on specific markets to target. Again, this is about shrinking the U.S. and 10 million healthcare professionals into specific relocation friendly markets. It's like basically counting cards in blackjack. It's not going to ensure that you win every hand, but you want to stack the deck in your favor as much as possible. So selecting those pockets of the country to target first because you have favorable migration flow is going to be really, really impactful. Go to the next one. Next slide. This is another big mistake I see, assuming that one size fits all. So, let's say you actually heed the advice of the previous example and you work really hard to filter down the U.S. into specific select markets. I don't know, your organization's in Philadelphia, for example, and you need to recruit out of market for a nurse leader or an endocrinologist. If you do your research and you determine, let's say, the smartest usage of your dollars is to reach, target Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Washington, D.C., because, right now, those states are showing favorable migration data along with maybe supply and demand disparities that are in your favor. Okay, good. So you win out 100 cities down to 3 and probably hundreds of thousands of candidates down to a handful, maybe a few thousand recruits. Now the question becomes, what are you going to say and how are you going to say it? Because let's not assume that every nurse leader, for example, in Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Washington, D.C., let's not assume they're the same person. They aren't. I can guarantee you they're not the same person. So this is where audience segmentation really comes into play. And the ability to further segment that audience into different categories is going to dictate how you should message to them. Things like years of experience or age or religious affiliation, military status, interests, hobbies. These are all important psychographic data that if you can leverage this information, you can develop better, more relatable messaging, which gets higher engagement, which in turn engenders significantly more conversations for you to have. So I think the bottom line is the more you know about the person, the actual human beings that you're trying to recruit, the greater the likelihood you have of ensuring fit both between your organization and the candidate and your organization. So, Jeff, I'm going to throw this back to you.
Yeah, we just want to quickly touch on the cost of getting it wrong and the ripple effect it has of failed recruitment marketing and relocation, how costly and disruptive this can be. As we know, you're spending so much time and money and resources to recruit this talent. So if you don't have a good program in place, you're going to lose a lot of talent. You're going to have a recruiter burnout who gets that candidate right to the finish line, but they can't close the deal because support's not being offered. You're going to have delayed start dates because of the logistics of moving is so murky and challenging that all of a sudden they're going to ask for a 2-week delay on their start date. That's a physician Now that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenues in those few weeks. Recruitment ROI is being destroyed by too many organizations just giving people money, wishing them good luck, and not offering support to themselves and their families. And all that reputational damage by just saying, here's a van line, here's a realtor. Knowing they're going through this stressful life event and moving to this new community, everyone should be offering more support that's being given today at too many healthcare systems. So to help solve this, one of the things that we often talk about with our clients and anyone when we're talking to conferences, there's three main components to having a great strategy for out-of-market hiring in healthcare. Number one is recruiting and selling the community out of the gate. So when you know someone, the very first interview is an out-of-market candidate, you should have lots of great content around selling the community and educating someone on what it would be like to live there. Step two is once they visualize themselves living there through the great platform you'd be using, they need to have an on-site interview that's seamless. If you're doing on-site visits where it's wowing them, it's telling them everything they need to know, the coffee shops to go to, the best restaurants in town. You're booking all the services for them, as I talked about earlier, so they're not having to front money. And then finally, that joy for a relocation, where you give them a proven process to follow, where nothing is left to chance. A relocation is no longer a gamble, but it's a competitive advantage for your organization because you're giving them one place to go that does everything for them. These three steps, selling the community, having great on-site visits, and a joy for relocation at the end of this is how you're going to win talent when it comes to out-of-market hiring. And now we're going to pass it over to our panelists, where Ryan's going to be asking a series of questions.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Jeff. So let's kind of just jump right into it. I got some icebreaker questions, some storytelling questions, some educational questions. So let's get started. My first one for the group is a bit of an icebreaker, but I want to challenge you a bit. If you had to pick one metric, one data point about your current relocation or out-of-market program that makes you the most uncomfortable, maybe that's because it's too high or too low, or you simply don't have it. What is it, and what's the first step you're taking to fix it? And either Becky or Susan can jump in. Susan, I know you have a good story on this one.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's two that make me nervous. One, of course, is overall spend. But the reason for that is because we are now seeing higher volumes in relocations than we've seen even pre-pandemic. And so I'll give you an example. We saw in the last 5 years, I think the most we ever did was about 500 moves in a year. And we were trending towards 700 for this fiscal year. And so when you are budgeting based upon past history, you add a little bit of growth. When you go from 500 to 700, that makes everyone nervous from a budgeting perspective. That said, as we all know, there is significant ROI in being able to fill these positions. So it does make sense that you would continue this process and that you would continue, to talk about how you source talent nationally and not just in your backyard. But it does raise some questions, and it does make me rather nervous as we look at some of these numbers.
I would echo that 100%. Like, for me, it's the rising cost of, paying for relocations, which have increased significantly over the past couple of years. And in part, it's because we actually decided to add more positions that would be eligible for relocation, especially during the time of the pandemic. So now we're actually looking to hone in more specifically on what are our difficult to fill positions and really focusing in on those. So the metrics that we're using, actually, we're working with Rogue and working with Christian at Rogue to really identify what roles that we have open have a high acuity rating when it comes to being difficult to fill, and really, really honing in on those for any of our incentives, whether it's relocation, employee referral bonus, sign-on bonus.
How are you? Sorry, I had to take myself off mute. So Susan, Becky, so how are you making relocation less of a barrier for out-of-market candidates?
I think I could start with that. So we recognize that relocation can be a real hurdle, especially for our candidates that are moving to rural Vermont and northern New York. So we have partnered with UrbanBound for quite a number of years at this point, maybe 8 years at least. And we offer a comprehensive tech-enabled relocation platform that provides candidates with really personalized guidance, access to vetted local suppliers, real-time support, and that could be support for them, or it could be for their partner that's helping them with the moves. So the technology is really easy. So that's really streamlined everything from housing searches to expense management. It makes the process more transparent and less stressful. Also at UVM Health, I feel like we've been really at the forefront in investing in employee housing and childcare solutions to address local barriers, which are significant around housing and childcare. So I think candidates, it's really important for us to feel like our candidates are feeling supported from day one.
Yeah, and Becky, I think that's a really important point. So there was the slide that talked about some of the cost to doing relocation poorly. One of those too, to add to that, is if they're not prepared on day one. So when you're distracted and you're thinking about when are my household goods showing up at my doorstep, and yet I just started my new job and I'm trying to figure this out and I got to get my kids enrolled in school. And if you don't have something that's in place that really helps support that, then you're also losing productivity on that day one as they're not really feeling engaged and settled. So I would add that to your list of concerns. We added at Peace Health a partnership with a vendor that's really been helping us to remove some of these barriers. And so they do have associated realtors that work with them that are fully vetted up front. And then as realtors do area tours for us, they also provide us feedback from what did the candidates say? What did their family say? What things might we not have heard in an interview from someone that we then can help to, remove some of those barriers or to answer those questions for them. And then we also give feedback the other direction. So if we have a poor experience with a realtor, then we also can say that's not one we really want to work with us again. We want them to paint the best light, obviously, of our communities. And so that's something that's really important to us. That particular vendor has also put together a number of area spotlight videos. So Jeff, to your point earlier about putting those videos together and highlighting the locations and what's cool about those, we've done lots of work around that, both with the vendor as well as with our own videos that we're sharing out there about some of those locations. And just like Becky, we have a lot of more rural, smaller locations that not everyone has even heard of. So trying to help them understand what's cool about those locations is important. And then I saw in the chat, Christina Vines mentioned that often we assume that when we are hiring physicians that they can afford those relocations. And the reality is that is not always the case. So don't assume just because someone earns a high income that they are also good at managing their money or have a giant savings account. Or if they just graduated from med school, sorry, they have huge student loans, probably not a lot in the bank, and their first job isn't nearly what people expect they're probably making. So one of the things we did for them, as well as the rest of our folks that are relocating, is we brought on board a vendor that can help us to pay some of those dollars in advance up to 60 days prior to their start date, so they can really help with, well, I've got all this expense that's coming out of pocket. I don't know how to pay for this. I need to put a deposit on the apartment so that I secure it. I don't have the funds for that. So that gives them that ability to be able to, use that resource. And then as they're moving, let's say, they're going along this road and they are getting their household goods delivered, the partner that they have with all of their relocation vendors, which does give us access to those commercial rates and they're fully vetted, they're insured. So, to your earlier example where someone's goods were damaged, they would take care of those types of things. They have the insurance on that to be able to help us with that. They have a program in place that if someone needs their household goods delivered before they have some of those funds, so in some cases we do have dollars that come in after a move versus before, that they will allow them to receive their household goods and then they pay a finance charge of $10 a day until it's paid off, which is super reasonable and is a huge benefit for people that are saying, gosh, I need my stuff, but I can't pay for it right this second. So we've done several things that I feel like are a good opportunity for us to remove some of those barriers that relocation can provide.
We have a question for Susan from Heidi that kind of leans into my next question too. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of diverse environments. So we're lucky here today to have two very different healthcare systems right? With Peace Health being in the west and University of Vermont being in the northeast. But what kinds of diverse environments, whether it's rural, regional health, large academic systems, and some of these nuances can we talk about? And Heidi's asking specifically, Susan, were you able to, that's her pain point?
Yeah, Heidi and I shared some similar geography, so I understand the pain point. And what Heidi would also tell you is there are not a lot of imaging services schools in the Pacific Northwest, and that then mandates us to relocate more folks. So the short answer, Heidi, is yes, we've had success with that. And then to your question about diversity, what's interesting about Peace Health, and I don't know, Becky, I'm sure will share with us kind of what her landscape looks like. I have a major metro area, so we sit in Portland, Oregon, major metro. It's actually Vancouver, Washington, just the other side of the border. So we have kind of this major metro, and then we have a lot of more rural locations. So one of the locations is in Craig, Alaska. Another one's in Ketchikan, Alaska. Florence, Oregon. Like we have some of these that are very small locations. So it is interesting as you think about what does that relocation program look like? What does your marketing look like when you have that kind of diversity of differences in locations? The one thing they all have in common is it is the Pacific Northwest. We are known for outdoors. So if you love the outdoors, this is a good place to be. So that's one of the strategies that we've used is kind of that where grit meets heart. Like if you love the outdoors, come and do work that's meaningful and then go play in the mountains or play on the beach or go fishing in Alaska. All those things are here for you.
So we are not in the Northwest. Our challenges are probably a little bit different, but we use the same, similar employer value where it's, if you enjoy the outdoors and hiking and skiing and being on the lake, then this is where you want to be. Unique challenges for our region really is we don't sit in any metropolitan area. The most metropolitan area we sit in is Burlington, Vermont, which is where University of Vermont is. So it's a very cool college town, but it would not be considered a metropolitan area by any means. So we struggle with workforce shortages across all of our healthcare roles. For instance, in Vermont, the state of Vermont, our unemployment rate is about 2%. And so that is a real struggle for all industries. We have some areas that have pretty significant geographic isolation issues. So I might say that Elizabethtown, New York, and maybe Malone, New York might be the two of the areas maybe that might be the most limited in terms of having some urban amenities. Definitely scarcity of affordable housing and childcare, huge issue for us in Vermont and in Northern New York. There's definitely some professional isolation for some specialties in healthcare here. And then it's just a struggle for us also for retention. So it may be that we do relocate people and they struggle to integrate with our community. And so we try really hard, through employee resource groups and getting people well connected and well educated in advance of what they're in for, what they're signing up for. So we address these by highlighting our strong community culture. Like I said, investing in housing and childcare. We do offer a lot of flexible work arrangements. So whether it's, remote hybrid, maybe, local, but then working from home. We also emphasize meaningful impact and lifestyle benefits, like we stressed, and the benefits of practicing in a rural academic setting.
So we talked a little bit about partnering with vendors and using technology to simplify the relocation process. I'd like to lean a little bit into some of the key functionalities TA leaders should look for in recruitment marketing, or relocation technology that goes beyond kind of the simple automation relationship?
You cut out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of the question. So I think, the key functionality that TA leaders should look for in recruitment marketing or relocation technology is that it goes beyond simple automation, is really focused on transforming the candidate and the employer relationship. So look for platforms that offer a personalized candidate journey and tailored relocation support. Look for tools that have predictive analytics, so that you're enabled for better decision making. Look for tools that provide real-time communication and feedback loops. Look for tools that could potentially integrate with your onboarding or your pre-boarding group. Look for tools that have data, easy access to data and insights, especially around how people are engaging with the tools, how they're utilizing their benefits. I mean, our goal really is to create a seamless, high-touch experience that builds trust and engagement from the first interaction through pre-boarding and beyond, stretching and hopefully through the entirety of their career, but at the very least, throughout those first 90 days and getting them started.
Yeah, I think Becky covered that perfectly. I probably wouldn't add anything else to it. The only thing that comes to mind in our case, because we're paying some of those pre-hire, which we ran into a barrier that our payroll team and our accounts payable team weren't real excited about being involved in that process. So we engaged a vendor to help with that. So the only other thing I would probably add to that is that, she said integration, but making sure that that data transfers where you need it to. So in our case, at some point, we have to capture that into payroll. And so just making sure that, your systems tie as best as you can.
Amanda has a question from the chat. Susan, does Peace Health have a strong relocation program for surgical staff? One of our partner job boards informed us Peace Health is a top employer for surgical techs, which is an area we struggle with.
So first off, I'm thrilled to hear that Peace Health considered a top employer for surgical techs. That's amazing. I would say, we struggle with surgical techs just like everyone else does. We've really been working on apprenticeships and how do we, build from within. And yes, we do quite a bit of relocation for them. We do have a relocation package that's in place for surgical staff and surgical techs. And so, yes, we have all of those, still in place. I'll also tell you, we've been through an evolution. So just like Becky said earlier, we're all worried about how much this is costing us. So we first rolled out relocation. We added tax assistance to us, and it made us stand out. Not everybody was doing tax assistance. It was pretty cool. And it's expensive. And it causes other, taxation issues that show up. You have FICA taxes you couldn't have budgeted for. And so we learned quickly, well, that's probably not something we can do. So we ratcheted back the tax assistance. And then just like Becky, we're looking at all of our positions. Where do we have, not an abundance, because I don't think there's abundance of talent for almost everything we recruit for, but where is it maybe less difficult to recruit, and should we turn those off? So we've been through an evolution. Amanda, I don't have a silver bullet for you either on how to recruit surge techs. The only thing you can do, as is to build all those relationships with those schools, and then look at building your own in-house programs to try to develop those folks, and then give them a career path. So if they come into Peace Health, where do they go from there? How can they grow within the organization?
100%. Same for surgical techs. We have an apprenticeship program that we are getting up and running, as well as CSR techs, phlebotomy techs. A lot of these roles, you really need to start thinking about growing your own and then having a career path for them to keep them.
I really love this next question because I've heard Jeff speak live on this topic many times, as well as lots of great insights from Anthony, but would love to get our expert panel's take on this. Have you seen relocation benefits become that kind of deciding factor for candidates choosing between offers? Any kind of aha moments or examples or stories that you ran into where it was either a critical deal breaker or just massive win?
I mean, I would say yes, absolutely, right? I think there are always times when you're going to offer a better program than someone else does. I think we see that typically at the higher up you go. So the higher level positions that you see, that's where your relocation really makes a difference. I'll also be honest and say, given that we are a Pacific Northwest employer, a similar size to what Becky's is. So we're about 18,000 caregivers, across those 3 states. So it's similar in size. We are a Pacific Northwest brand. And so what I mean by that is people in Florida don't have a clue who Peace Health is. Becky, before she got on the call today, probably had no idea who Peace Health was. And so what happens for us often is relocation is a support for people who were probably already considering moving to the Pacific Northwest for one reason or another. So it's not always a differentiator, but it often can be if you are offering it and someone else isn't, where you are offering more or better service or share service, or your area tour was better, or whatever that thing might be, that your personal touch was better, you engage the family in a better way. And it really is all about that personal connection. The stronger they feel that connection, the more likely they are to accept your offer, even if sometimes your relo wasn't as strong as another organization. At least that's my personal opinion. So I'm sure Becky probably has some other thoughts on that too.
No, I don't actually. I grappled with this, thinking about one particular case where I could think about that, like really tipped the scales. I will just caveat this by saying I don't recruit anymore. I don't do the hands-on recruiting. And I think that if I were to ask anybody on my staff, they would say absolutely yes. There have been many times that, but it comes down to, really being able to pitch it like an offer is so much more than just a salary, right? And here are how great our benefits are. We are offering relocation. This is amazing. Here are some groups that we can get you connected with right off the bat. So yeah, I don't know that I can say, oh, absolutely, there was this one situation. I'm sure it happens all the time.
Becky made me think of something that's an opportunity for us, because Peace Health has a Nurture 360 program, which is our wellness program. And wouldn't it be interesting, as I'm doing my recruiting, if I also talk about how relocation support is part of that Nurture 360 program? So you triggered that for me. So those of you who have helped wellness programs, add that to, hey, we're going to help you before you even start.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's an opportunity. Jeff, Anthony, have you seen that in action with any other healthcare systems that are building, maybe ambassadorships or employee generated videos that tell that story of their journey through the relocation process, and kind of lean into that as part of that value prop, part of their employer brand DNA? We talked about, there's different stages of a career, right? The new grad, the mid-career specialist, the executive leader. Are you seeing movement in that and kind of leaning into that as part of the recruitment, marketing, and employer brand?
Yeah, we're seeing lots of that at UrbanBound. I mean, the community is absolutely critical, helping someone settle into that community, but helping them make the connections to like-minded people. So if you're relocating hundreds of people per year, learn about those people. And then once they become passionate about their new community and their job, having them be an ambassador for you is going to do wonders. So ambassador programs are really growing in popularity. They have a big impact on retention. I talk to organizations all the time, and I ask them, tell me what you do to retain new hires in the first critical 1 year of employment. And most cannot answer that question. They just say, oh, we call me, check in once a month and see how they're doing. But programs like ambassador programs leveraging software to touch and do ongoing surveys of how they're selling into their community throughout the year is really a good thing to do.
I see a lot of video content out there, Ryan, because videos get the biggest clicks of anything. You go to a landing page or a website and you have a bunch of links, you're going to see the video links have the most clicks. And what's great about videos now is that with the advent of TikTok, people really appreciate authenticity of videos, which is music to the ears of marketers at hospitals, because they don't have to spend 50 grand to produce a 30-second video anymore. It could be somebody on an iPhone, interviewing the chief medical officer or other people that have come before them. And the authenticity of the video allows you to scale them and do tons of them But also it's a more engaging impact when the video content is more authentic. So I see that a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, would 100% agree the power of that, authenticity, the non-scripted kind, right? You're just filming a day in the life, or just straight from your
Right.
smartphone, can be great. I love that experience, and helping that be an anchor to the value prop to making, we talked about it. It's such a life-changing decision, and it's, more than just the individual. It's a family decision. We talked about that before. So such a great conversation. I think all of us here really appreciate you. We're bumping up to kind of the last few minutes. I think we can leave it open for any questions. If you want to chime in on chat, we'll get those questions answered. Until then, why don't we just kind of go round robin and maybe leave a final takeaway or final thought, what you'd want, healthcare talent acquisition to take away from this conversation. And whoever wants to start first, I'll kind of just pick a box. We can start with Anthony.
Yeah, I think that my final comment would be that there's a lot of ideas here, and the idea that you can implement all of them is probably not a good idea. Pick one or two, leave the rest on the table, probably one, and share that with the team and the leadership, and focus on maybe doing one thing as opposed to trying to do more than one. I will pick Becky.
I would just say lean into your data and your analytics to help you choose a path, whether it's with relocation or with marketing. And Ryan knows this, we have a rock star on my team that really lives and breathes TA data and helps to inform directions that we're going with our spend. So I think that would be my key word or piece of advice.
Yeah, Becky, I think that's great advice. And I also think, take the feedback and do something about the feedback. So anytime you have a step in the process, if you're doing area tours, get feedback from your candidates. What went well, what didn't go well. If you're doing an interview process, get feedback on your interview process. If you work with RogueHire, use all of your data at every step in the process to see where you might have bottlenecks, and then do everything you can to personalize the experience, because everyone's talking about AI. Everyone thinks AI manages most of the recruiting process, and we all know this is a very personal experience. So the more you can have that personal touch and the more you can customize, the better off you're going to be, the more likely they'll take your offer instead of someone else's. Jeff, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just close with, I'm a former recruiter, and there's nothing worse than working so hard to recruit top talent and have the ball be dropped once they need to relocate for the job. So have empathy for those that you're recruiting, make sure they have a proven process in place, and don't leave relocation to chance. I think Ryan,
no questions have come in, and we're about at, we'll wind down. Am I still frozen, or am I good?
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm gonna talk like I'm unfrozen. But thanks for putting the slide up, Marcus. Any questions? Here's how to get more information from Anthony, Jeff, myself. If you've also like to connect with Susan and Becky, I'm sure you can find them easily on LinkedIn, or we can share their LinkedIn information in comments here. But just thank you, everybody on our panel, our experts from Rave Health, from UrbanBound, our TA leader experts, Becky and Susan. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy days on the importance of relocation and bridging that gap. I hope you all out there got a lot out of this conversation. I mean, lots of stuff to lean into, from Becky talking about the data and looking at these locations, to all the recruitment, marketing, and process education mistakes and lessons we heard from Jeff and Anthony. So thank you all very much. We appreciate you. So thank you from RogueHire. Thank you from Rave Health. Thank you from UrbanBound. Have a great rest of your afternoon. And
thank you.
Blessed rest of your week. We will see you all next time.
Thank you.